What is up guys, Andy Forestine Runner here, and today we're going to be comparing the New Balance 1080 version 10 to the New Balance FRESHFOAM Tempo. So I'm super excited to be comparing both of these shoes today. Both of these are 2020 releases from New Balance, both in the FRESHFOAM family, but both very different, yet have some similarities, which we're going to go through very, very shortly. Today we're going to be pitting their wits against each other and telling you the pros and cons of both of these shoes. So if you're excited for today's video, guys, make sure you give it a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel for weekly running content. Without further ado, we'll start with the 1080 version 10. So if we start off with the 1080 version... Oh, wrong shoe. Saucony Endorphin Pro. That's for the next one. So we'll start with the 1080 version 10, and just a quick point to note before we start this video is that this is not going to be a technical overview. This is going to be the pros and cons of both these shoes. We've covered technical overviews in both of these shoes in the first impressions video, so you can go back onto the channel, check out or search, use the search bar and find 1080 version 10 first impressions or New Balance FRESHFOAM Tempo first impressions to find out the full specifications of these shoes. What I want to do today is highlight some of the areas on these shoes in particular that I really, really love, and maybe where it could be a little bit better in future versions. But the one thing that I want to highlight to you straight off the bat is the weight of these shoes are so similar, it's unreal. And I actually couldn't believe it because I gathered that the Tempo was meant to be a lighter weight, more snappier shoe, which it certainly feels, but believe it or not, this thing is 349 grams at 12.3 ounces in a UK size 13.5. My Tempo, which yes, I've had to go up a size 14.5 because it didn't quite fit true to size, is 339 grams. That's 10 grams difference, that's it, or 12 ounces on the money. I actually couldn't believe that they were as similar as they were. So what we'll do is we'll go through and I'll tell you what I like, dislike about the shoe and where I think it shed some of the weight compared to the other model and where it's gained some of the weight. The first area it shed some weight for me is the heel cup area. I love this heel collar. I love the Achilles flare. My foot just slides into it, and this bit here, my heel just slides in beautifully. It doesn't slip out, doesn't cause any slippage. It's lovely. It's a very thin material all the way around. It's rigid on the back here, but it is very thin and it does save some weight. It's done. Some shoes that I would put in this category can feel rather heel heavy, like the Nike React Miler. There's so much going on in and around the heel cup area that it feels like your heel just wants to hit the floor, and I really struggle with form in that shoe. But this one is fantastic. Such a lightweight heel counter area and a perfect padded tongue, medium padded, medium thickness, nothing too thin, nothing too thick, with the gusseted tongue there. Again, beautiful gusseted tongues. They've got to do more of them in shoes. They just hug your midfoot, lovely. Where it has gained a bit of weight, I think, is this synthetic knitted upper. It's very stretchy. I love it. A lot of you don't like it. For me, it hugs my foot beautifully for a wider foot. I know you can get a narrow version for people with narrow feet, but for me, I've got the normal version and it's just fantastic. But it does feel a very, very, very heavy, thick material. And we've got a few overlays going on here. Nothing crazy, but again, just on top of that synthetic knitted upper, just adds a little bit too much to the weight, in my opinion. So if they could kind of get this knit and just make it a tiny bit lighter, a tiny bit more breathable, it would be just the most fantastic upper. And then of course, where this thing will gain a little bit more weight compared to the Tempo is the thickness on the midsole. 30mm to 22mm stack height, 8mm drop. It's using more FRESHFOAM X than the Tempo. The Tempo is a smaller drop, we'll cover that very shortly. And in terms of rubber outsole, again, when you see the Tempo, it's a different pattern, but if you looked at it and averaged it out, it uses around about the same amount of rubber outsole. So it's really not any much heavier or adding any weight on that area. So to be honest with you, I think the main bulk of the weight added in this shoe is pretty much coming from the upper. The rest of it is relatively lightweight. If we move on to the Tempo, as I just alluded to with the 1080 version 10, we'll start with the midsole, as I just said. 24 to 18 millimeter stack height. Someone commented that on my first impressions video. I wasn't sure, I couldn't find out the stack height. They said 24 to 18. It's a 6 millimeter drop shoe, so 2 millimeters less than the 1080 version 8. So it does save a little bit of weight there. I'm loving the FRESHFOAM X, by the way. For those of you out there that love it, you've got to give this video a thumbs up just for that midsole. New Balance have done some great things with FRESHFOAM X. I'm super excited to try the Beacon V3 when that comes out. Where this thing gains a little bit of weight is in the heel counter area. So as you can see, it's a totally different construction heel counter area to the 1080 version 10. We don't have the heel flare, we don't have that thin material. This is more of what I would call a traditional style shoe, something you would see 5-6 years ago. A little bit dated in that aspect, more Asics style, I'd say, more than anything. Just nice and plush. For me, when I say dated, I don't mean I don't like it. I mean I love it. It's very comfortable, but it's nothing revolutionary. The 1080 looks a little bit out there. This looks very standard, and we have the pull tab to replace the Achilles flare. And again, where this thing adds a little bit of weight is this plastic around the heel cup. It provides stability in the heel area. I get it, it needs to be there. Heel cups, really, bar racing shoes really should be relatively sturdy. It's where a lot of instability comes from in a lot of runners, so we do like a good stable heel cup counter area. But this plastic is a little bit too much. Other shoes have done it better, whether that's just reinforcing the material inside from the inside out rather than sticking a lump of plastic cap around the back. It reminds me a little bit of the Infinity React and the Miler that I have, where you've got that supportive cup that goes all the way around. Again, it's just a touch excessive, so that does add to it. Thankfully though, it doesn't make me feel like the heel is weighty in any way, shape or form. It does really feel like a very lightweight shoe, but the weight completely is crazy. It doesn't feel the weight it is, but that is one area that it could save some weight. In terms of the upper though, I mean, the upper is brilliant on this thing. It's so thin, so you can see all of the holes in the top of the upper there. So much more breathable than the 1080 version 10. Similar overlays. We've got this crazy pattern going on here, exactly the same as in the 1080 version 10. And for those of you who don't know, this has replaced the Zanti lineup. So the Zanti line that was out last year, the Tempo has replaced that lineup, and so technically I didn't expect it to be too similar to the 1080 version 10, because normally with shoes they're in sort of families, the 880, the 1080, all of that sort of thing. This is kind of like it's wheedled its way into the FRESHFOAM family, but it's not in that lineup of shoes, but it looks very similar. Again, nice lacing system, laces feel exactly the same as the 1080 version 10. Very bog standard, very good, just everything I'd expect from a New Balance shoe. New Balance are killing it, by the way, this year. So they've saved a lot of weight on the upper, such a lightweight upper. Just this overlay around the top here, which I don't know if it does anything, who knows. And then onto the outsoles, you see a different pattern, but roughly the same amount of outsole rubber used. We've got a big chunk here, a little chunk here, and exposed FRESHFOAM in the middle there. So on the whole, I think the only place where this could shed some weight and make a massive difference would be this heel counter area. I was super surprised when putting the facts and figures together for this video that the weight on these two shoes were very, very similar, because trust me, they do feel very, very different. Which one do I prefer? Which do I use them for? Well, actually, I don't actually have a preference in either of them. What I'd like to say, as I just said, is New Balance are killing it this year. They're producing some amazing shoes, and for me, these are specific to a certain type of run in my rotation. The only place that they cross over for me, surprisingly, is the long run. I didn't think I would get on with this one with the fact that it was more of a lower to middle size midsole drop. I just thought with the smaller stack height, I wasn't going to get on with it so well. Too much ground contact time, my legs were going to feel tired. To be honest with you, 18 miles done and dusted in this thing in the hottest weather we've had in a while. It was brilliant. So I'm not going to complain. It felt sharp, it felt snappy, it felt really good. Whereas this thing gives you more of a cushion ride, but again, relatively similar weight. I could pick up the pace in this thing. Where they differ for me is this is much more of an easier day shoe, steady pace. This has been ace on the intervals that I've been doing in them lately. Really enjoying them in the 1K reps and sort of tempo, steady pace. So this for me certainly is geared towards that side of things, whereas this, as the name alludes to, whereas this is so much more designed for the easier recovery, daily mile type of thing. If you're looking for those type of shoes, then for me this thing it can probably do a little bit more than this thing overall. For those of you who missed it, my first impressions was whipping this thing out of the box and doing 8 by a K, and I did them really, really well in this shoe, despite it not being geared up for that sort of purpose. So I think this is a little bit more of a jack of all trades than the Tempo. Having said that, if you said to me today, go out and do some kilometre repeats, I would always choose the Tempo over the 1080 version 10. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope that's a good comparison for you guys if you're considering either of these shoes. But of course, if you have either of them, let me know in the comments below, and let me know how you like to use these shoes. If you're super excited for the next video, which I gave you a little teaser for earlier, make sure you give this video a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel for weekly running content. As always, I'll see you on the next one. Until then.